All right, well, make your way slowly to the seats from the bar. Thank you for being here. We're about to start. Once again, thank you enormously for being with us here today. It is a tremendous honor for us that we were able to get this kind of interest. We're hoping to see more people. There's definitely going to be some people watching us live on YouTube. Hi. You know the drill, like, subscribe, all the stuff. But joking aside, it is a very serious matter that we are talking about today. And yet I would like us to talk about it with as much of a smile on our faces as possible. Because I think the worst thing that we can do is to give the other guys the satisfaction of seeing us sad. I am happy that you are here. I'm happy that our guests are here. I'm happy that one of our guests in particular is here, but we will talk about that later. A couple of words about what is going on. Polina and I, Andrei, we are members, co-founding members of the Future Russia Switzerland Association. Yes, I do remember how we're called. We organize various kinds of events here in Switzerland dedicated to the fight for democracy and freedom in Russia. But we've never tried anything quite like this before. And I'm super proud of what we've been able to do with your help over this month. The Freedom Zone Festival is part of the global Freedom Zone initiative, running festivals all throughout the world and all throughout Europe. More festivals are coming this year. Please check out the website and you will find out more. But during this festival in Switzerland, we've collaborated with a lot of international organizations. You will see behind you the 120 political prisoners exhibition, of which we only have a part here. That's an international collaboration. We had collaborations like this running in Geneva and plenty of other events. What should I add? What am I missing?
I want to say also thank you for coming. And this is our last event that we're running with this festival, Freedom Zone. And again, as Andrei said, that's the first time that we organize a roundtable, and I'm very happy the guests that are coming today. I will just add one technical issue. Just we will have a question round after the discussion, and the whole roundtable will be transmitted live online. So there are people watching us, hopefully online.
I think we're already live.
If you want to ask a question, but you would like to stay anonymous, just don't say anything, name or anything, and stay behind the camera.
You can also alternatively ask one of us, Polina or myself, and we will ask a question for you. Well, please introduce our first guest and moderator.
So I would like to give the word to Gulnaz Pratchefeld. She will guide us through this evening. She arrived from St. Gallen. She's head of events in University of St. Gallen, and she's also a lecturer in European history and culture. So Gulnaz, please.
Please welcome Gulnaz to the stage.
Thank you so much. Also, good afternoon from my side. Thank you for introduction, Andrei and Polina. Good afternoon and hello to everyone, to those who are sitting here and also to our guests online. Tonight, we face a difficult dilemma. Political prisons in Russia are not only a tragic byproduct by Russian regime. It's also part of the liberty designed to manufacture hostages, to spread fear, to restrict citizens in their fundamental rights. Even Russia's state polling agency, FSIOM, recently asked its citizens whether, I quote, under the conditions of the special military operations, so-called special military operation, is it acceptable to limit rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution if it serves the interests of the state? And I mean, this question alone says a great deal about the current moral climate. Part of this broader dilemma was articulated by Russian sociologist Boris Kagarlitsky, who himself is serving now 5 years in prison on fabricated charges of justifying terrorism. What Kagarlitsky did, he publicly refused to be included in any future prisoner exchange, warning that a global exchange economy risks teaching dictators that political prisoners are profitable. His statement raises questions. Is the exchange of political prisoners a human act of rescue, or is it a moral compromise with repressive regimes? And further, if not exchange, then what? What are the alternatives? And the next question is, what role should the international community, the media, and politics play in securing the release of the political prisoners? So tonight we'll address these issues with ethical, legal, diplomatic, and political dimensions of prisoners exchange together, and reflect on how we might move, maybe, hopefully, from celebrating single releases to building a systemic strategy that raises the cost of producing political prisoners in the first place. And I have now honor of introducing our guests. These are Swiss journalist, author, and expert on Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and Russia's war of aggression, Lucia Cherky. Please welcome Lucia. Then I have the honor of introducing you Marianne Binder-Keller. She is a member of the Swiss Council of State's communication consultant and publicist. And I also like to say welcome to Switzerland, to Zurich, to someone who landed safely today in Zurich. It's not a joke, but this is political prisoner and former political prisoner, hope, thanks to God, and Russian politician Andrei Pivovarov. Andrei, my first question is addressed to you. After 4 years behind bars and now almost 15 months in the free Europe, free world, you are here as someone who has left Russian prison from inside, right? You are also someone who was exchanged and released. So actually, today we are talking about the situation and how to help those who are still in the very position you once were. And I think it's important for us to get to know you a little bit more as a person you were back then and try to understand the context around you. Andrei Pivovarov, before the imprisonment, what should we know about you back then?
First of all, thanks a lot for invitation, because it's great to be here and to understand that a lot of people who go away from Russia and who live in Switzerland help people inside Russia, who help political prisoners, help people who fight with the Putin regime. And it's great when you have letters in prison and you understand that the evening some events happens in different countries, different cities, and you understand that you're not alone. Very good, very good. Thanks a lot for this invitation. And a short story about me. I was a politician. All my life, I was from the first as a young activist, and then I started to be a regional leader in St. Petersburg. And when I was arrested, I was one of the leaders of Open Russia movement. It's one of the largest opposition movement in Russia. I'm sorry for my English. I try to upgrade my learning, but I started to study German, so maybe sometimes I will ask my colleagues to help me in this. Sorry for mistakes. And I was a politician. It was 2021 in Russia. Nobody, it's me, I will talk about me. We don't know anything about the future war. we all speak about elections, about repressions in Russia. And as a political leader, I'm going to go to the State Duma election. And before the 2 weeks until the registration start, of course, everyone knows that I'd like to be a candidate. I understand that I can't win, but it was a chance to promote your ideas, to collect your team, to 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 motivate people to not fight, maybe bad word, to be more active. And before the 2 weeks and until the election starts, I was arrested. It was some strange history, strange now, of course. But maybe you remember that the month before my arrest, there was a same situation in Belarus when Lukashenko captures the plane with the journalist Protasevich. He really captures the plane, and a little similar for me because I was in airport Pulkovo in St. Petersburg. I sit in the plane, everything was fine. I cross the border, they check my passport, everything was fine. I drink cappuccino, and my plane start to arrive from the plane. Everything was fine, but once upon a time, motor is off, and the commander told the Russian airport, told us that we have to go back. Okay, maybe something broke, maybe something happens. I have no nervous, and the plane came back to the airport, and the small white bus came to plane. Okay, maybe some people like to repair something, and I see two person in a suit, serious suits. They came to the plane. I sit near the window, and people don't look like some person who can repair a plane. And they came to stewardess, and after that I have a command in the one voice command. Pivovarov, police came to us, and I came to stewardess, and they show me FSB ID, and I understand that something wrong happens, and I will not go to Poland. I will go to prison, and it was true. And next, not 4 years, 3 years and 3 months, because I was released before the month, my end of my term. I spent in Russian prison. I can describe some sad stories, some funny stories, but it was my experience, and I was released now. And the one more important thing in my story is that I'd like to be a candidate. They'd like to block me. And I decided, okay, in the same situation, I'd like to be a candidate from the prison. And I was the first candidate who have his campaign from first day to last day in prison. Of course, I don't win, but it was like my tribune, my chance to speak about political prisoners and to speak about my stories. And one remark, sorry, I'd like to I told really today I have a meeting with the people, with the person who helps me a lot in prison. It's very important when you read the letters to the prisoners. And this was first time we have a meeting with Claire, who sent me letters to the prison, and it was very great for me. And Claire, thank you very much for this help. It was very important for me. It's Claire. She brought me in prison.
Like you had the blood. Well, this story has a happy end, but I'd like to come back to that moment when you've been arrested. In an interview shortly after your release, you said, "When I saw, quote, when I saw FSB officers board the plane and drive me through the city with flashing lights, I realized this would last a long time, that this arrest wouldn't be over in a month." What goes through the mind at that moment?
Maybe I'm not a typical person because I was politician maybe for I still politician. I was a politician in Russia maybe for 15 years as active person. So in Russia you have to understand, if you'd like to be a real, you'd like to be not candidate, you'd like to be a person who fight for the rules. It can happen. Of course, in this time already Boris Nemtsov was killed. Navalny was arrested. A lot of persons who not so famous in Europe was arrested the same. We know these names. So I understand how it happens. I spent approximately half an a year, not the full term, but from months, from several weeks in this it's detention center called. So I understand how it's called. So for me, it's not the time when you have to oh, I was arrested. It's so sad. I have to be very sad and don't touch me. No, you understand. You have to be very really concentrate. It's like a new period of your fighting. You have to speak very very careful with the policeman and speak a lot as you can from your lawyer to the media. It's like a time of your new fight, and I can stop fighting only in the period. It was very important for us because in the prison you absolutely always have to be ready for aggressive defense. It's not means that you attack somebody. It means that they can attack you, and you have to be ready. And for 3 years and 3 months, it continues. There is only one moment when it finished. It's important moment for us. We was exchanged. Everything fine. FSB go away. We go to some hotel. It was in Ankara in Turkey, and we have a phone. I have phone call to my wife, to my parents, some friends call to anywhere, and no, we eat some sandwich, drink water, everything fine. And the German authorities came to our group and please give us a minute. And the man stay in the center with the translator told, I am a part of the German authority. I'm a member of the group. And we exchange you and you are free. It was the first person from the authorities, not means Russians, Germans, who told me something good. We are free. And it was so emotional. Some girls start to, I'm start not crying, but really nervous too, because it was the first time when the person with the power told you something good, because you don't expect something good from any person from prison or from Russian authorities. And in this moment, I understand that the period which started in the plane in St. Petersburg finished in Ankara airport.
Thanks to God, it went this way. About your exchange, the next question will be, and I'd like to stick to the statement of Boris Kagarlitsky, who is, as we know, still imprisoned. He wrote, if staying means I must sit in prison, then I will sit in prison. Our goal is freedom for everyone, not just a few names on exchange list. When you hear this call that political prisoners are more needed inside the country and should refuse to be exchanged if possible, and not to make business model for a Russian state, what do you agree with him?
Maybe my idea is not comfortable. Some my colleagues who was exchanged disagree with me, but in my point of view, maybe it's not correct. Okay, maybe you can. I don't think that we have to um, understand, have to means that we have to do as he told. Because could you imagine? You sit in a prison. You have in prison in Russia approximately from 1,500 to 10,000 from older and prisoners. There was the children, women, people who ill, and some of us, as for example, me, as Karamurza, Yashin, as Kagarlitsky, have more attention. If somebody asks you, would you like to exchange? Of course, Garlitsky told you, no, let's exchange another woman, children, people who have really hard with her. But it's not the time, not that you can change the list. It's not your decision, not our decision. It's not decision of any of us. So, of course, he told very, he's strong man, he's brave man. But in this, if happens, if exchange happens, it doesn't mean, oh, he told no, we can exchange. Yashin told it doesn't matter because it's a system. So I think we have to take much more people as we can. And when he came here, we will discuss this. Maybe he will argue with me. Okay, but here, not in prison.
I'd like now to open the discussion with a look at the moral boundary, what I'd like to call a moral dividing line. Kagarlitsky warns that a thriving swap economy increases the supply of political prisoners. If not exchanges, then what else? How can we save lives even without creating tomorrow's hostages? Mariana Pintakera.
I just have a little question, which I didn't understand. Exchange from, also, what does exchange exactly mean? Who is exchanged?
No,
Just-
we'd like to release, of course. If, for example, today we have a news that Putin released 100,000, doesn't matter how much. Exchange, it's like a practice. For example, now our group was exchanged. We were a group approximately 16 person, and Putin takes some criminal person from Europe, from America, and maybe you know the Putin killer who was exchanged for us. Because Putin don't give a present. Lukashenko give a, I hate Lukashenko absolutely, of course, but he take present. He take go away. Putin don't do this.
Maybe I can say something about this. Well, first, thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, that's
what you
what I
wanna-
also say.
I think at the very moment, when we're talking about political prisoners, it's just very important for me personally to mention Ukrainian citizens in Russian prisons. I'm very, absolutely lucky that people got out of prison and got exchanged, and that Andrei Pivovarov was among them and got exchanged. But while we're here sitting in safe and very nice Zurich, there are an unknown number of Ukrainian citizens in Russian prisons, and they are endangered like by every second while we're sitting here and talking, because due to their citizenship, they're absolutely exposed to death threats every second. And after Andrei Pivovarov got exchanged, I make just one example of a young woman who died in Russian prison, a Ukrainian woman, Victoria Roshina. She was a journalist from Ukraine, and she was tortured to death. And most probably we will never know how she died exactly, because the Russian authorities took out several of her organs after her death. So when her body was exchanged to Ukraine, it's just not possible anymore, as far as we nowadays know, that, to actually conclude what were the reasons for her death. But most probably, due to the fact that organs were taken out of her, we can assume that she was tortured to death. And this is just a situation that people are facing in Russian prisons from Ukraine. And I would say every one of them is every second at such a high level of danger. And this is just very important for me to mention it, because we're talking today about political prisoners, and we don't know how many of them are actually from Ukraine in Russia right now.
That's absolutely important statement. Thank you, Lucia. So coming back to moral dividing line and the exchanges which become actually a business for authoritarian regimes. If not exchanges, then so what? What can be done in that case?
Let them free. Also, that would be very simple. Let them free at all. But I know this is very hypothetical and very difficult to just say, let them free. I just wanted to say something about my background, because I'm so really interested in this topic and really looking, as I'm really very, very impressed about everyone in a dictatorship who dares to stand up, or is in a prison, or is so brave to have another opinion. I'm a child of Cold War, and I read Solzhenitsyn. That was my early childhood already, that experienced a wall throughout Europe. And this terror regime of the Soviet Union was something which really was always in my mind, was always in the mind of my generation. And I never ever understood why in the 90s we were so open about Putin, at least the spy from the system, Soviet Union system. And we were full of hope that everything is going out well, but you can't change the mind of such a guy. That's more of my background, why I'm so interested in the topic. I was then, when the whole story about Navalny, the Free Navalny, this movement we had, I experienced the Russian embassy. I had a contact with them because they were treating Western journalists as mentally ill because you wrote about Navalny. And then I said that's typical. That's typical Soviet Union and dictatorship. Everyone is ill who is against the regime. Which and then it happened that the Russian embassy contacted me and wrote an article about me saying it's very dangerous. A member of the Swiss Parliament doesn't let us our free speech, us Russians in a free world in Europe, and. Why I say that is that dictatorships, they turn the truth. And people like you, staying in such a country, not losing their minds, this is something I really admire. And when I heard you before, you were in prison for a long time, how do you keep your mind? How do you survive? That you not suddenly that they don't wash your brain. It's something which I really admire on people like you.
Thanks a lot for this.
Sorry, now I asked the question which.
No, first of all, my prison, I can divide my prison on two periods. First of all, it was because in Russia we have different prisons. First of all, I was in South, and it's little light because you have a lot of connection with some other prisoners, and it's you have a lot of connections. You have letters. You have lawyers, and it means that you continue your life. It's your chance to show regime, your friends, some people who support you that it's not there. They try to block me, but no. Instead of it, I'd like to continue. And of course, first period, like a lot, but you have to be more concentrate, more hard, and more maybe. For me, it was a continue of my life. I was prepared. I'm not prepared for the prison, but I understand that it can happen. And of course, much more difficult was when I was in the North Karelia. It's a much more hard prison. It's colony, and I was isolated. I was isolated for 1 year and 7 months. That means I'm not always isolated, but I have no connection with other prisoners. Absolutely. If, for example, if you come to somewhere, they block absolutely other prisoners, and they can't see you. You have to go. They have to watch in another area. But I understand that it's my idea. I'd like to be a politics. I believe what I speak. I always can speak and have a position what I think. Nobody. I have no person who can recommend me what I have to do. And if I choose this. Wait, maybe so office. Sorry for this. I have a very short vocabulary, and I have to do it. It's like my decision. And it's the Karelia. I have, of course, some period of depression, and I understand that it's like, for example, when you're swimming, you are on the end of the for example, it's like a bottom, not bottom. The bottom, and it can be harder. Of course, they can kill you, but I think it not depends on me. But I start to fight from the bottom of this prison. And when you win a lot, for example, you win a little lighter regime. You win in some. You cheat him in some deals with administration. You start to create politic work inside the colony. Strange, of course, but you have to be strong in mind. And the most problem for me was that all your time can't do anything. It's a big problem, and you have no people who have to connect. Nobody beaten me. Nobody crying to me. Nobody punch me. But always only one, and you can't do anything. It's most pressure than physical control.
But this is kind of psychological torture as well, isolation, right?
Yeah, I told
I
about
think
Ukrainian.
it's very important that,
Yes.
of course, that we are Russian prisoners. have a better condition than
Yes.
Ukrainians. I
Yes.
met Ukrainian prisoners when I have transport once upon a time. I met not soldiers, it was prisoners which was removed from Kherson when the Russian army go away. The condition of this person much more harder than others, and condition of soldiers harder than prisoners. They, of course, they have a torture. They beat him. They have no lawyers, no connections, no letters. Because our problems, it's absolutely not the same that you described.
Well, we now heard this story about Ukrainian prisoners. We heard the story about your story, Andrei. My question is to you, Marianne Bintakela. Recently, Nobel Peace winner Dmitry Muratov said, appeal to Switzerland and its humanitarian tradition that Switzerland had to do more. So what can Switzerland really do beside the so-called quiet diplomacy?
Yeah, I made some propositions to our government during my time in when I was in the House of Representatives, Nationalrat. Confronting the Russian embassy, confronting our government, even in Iran, for example, even situation in Iran, which really occupies me a lot. And they always tell me, just keep, we have this quiet diplomacy. No, sorry. We have this, and it's better we talk behind the walls, we talk quietly. Much more happens that you think. I always get the same answers. And I think, I'm so sure that Switzerland should be much more pushy in everything we do. We are a country with a humanitarian tradition. We always say we are neutral. Neutrality is not a passport for not taking sides. It's not a passport for defending the vulneration of rights, of human rights. And I think we should do much more openly, because who else can be so open like all those countries in the West, all those countries, those democracies we live in, and we can say whatever we want, and we should use this voice much more. I think our government has the tendency to overestimate this neutrality, and I think exactly because of the neutrality we could be more open and more pushy.
I'd like to address this question to you. Yes,
Yeah.
Lucia, because you've been witnessing all this from both sides,
Mhm.
also in being in Russia and followed all the
Mhm.
happenings there.
Well, I would say there is so much Switzerland could do and Switzerland does not. I would say there is, of course, a lack of interest. It's very easy as a journalist to criticize always like people in charge and saying, oh, they're not doing enough, they should do more. But in this case, I'm quite sure about what I'm saying. So Switzerland could, for example, hand out humanitarian visa to people who are fleeing from repression. It's not possible. It's not possible for a person from Russia getting political asylum in Switzerland. Well, I can tell you by my own experience, people working, at within the government who are actually, deciding on cases whether a person will receive a humanitarian visa or not, told me that I should spend my time otherwise. It would be a waste of time for anyone to try to get a humanitarian visa for people fleeing from political repression from Russia, because like the cases in Switzerland by which you can get a humanitarian visa are very limited. There are a few examples, for example, like children, like girls and women from Afghanistan, they have a chance to get a humanitarian visa, but not political, refugees from Russia, people who are actually facing, a very dire situation. I know personally, and I did a report on that as well, I know personally people who are deserters from the Russian army, so people who do not want to fight in the war, against Ukraine, and they're sitting in several asylum shelters in Switzerland, also like in the canton you're from, also in the canton of Aargau. And they're actually waiting the final decision by the court in Switzerland that decides on these questions. And they received on the first level, they received actually a no by the Swiss government that their case is not strong enough for getting, refugee here, asylum in Switzerland. So that would be one thing. Another thing is, it's all depending on political will. We can't change the political will of Vladimir Putin. I would say that's out of our reach, just by any means. But of course, we could support people by more. If Russian people, in general, Russian people would have a perspective, my dog totally agrees with that. And it's right, you agree, right? So if people in Russia would have a perspective, what I would like to answer your first question, what can be done so that there would be less political prisoners? If people in Russia would have a perspective, a future, anything to look out for, then things would change. If anyone could give them a perspective, things would change. But people do not see a reason to protest. Like the majority of people do not see to protest because they do not trust anyone. The mistrust within Russia is very high. There is not such a thing as a society. And as long as people mistrust their neighbor more than they mistrust their government, they will never ever be, they never ever will solidarize with people, from within the streets. They won't, because it's considered to be too dangerous. People in Belarus, they have an absolutely different experience because they had like kind of a perspective with with elections and a political new leader, which unfortunately turned out to be absolutely not happening. And Alexander Lukashenko most probably will stay in power until his very last day, as it looks at the very moment. In Ukraine, people had the perspective of the European Union and joining the European Union. That was the reason why Maidan happened. I was on Maidan also covering the protests there in Ukraine. So I would say people in Russia are just lacking any perspective. This is why we have political prisoners and people are not, on masses like protesting this situation. And for that, from the outside, it's very hard to change anything, right? To give people a perspective. But I think we should try. And in the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I thought like if Europe would do more, and also Switzerland, by offering people who are deserting the Russian army, for example, like saying, okay, if you're deserting the Russian army, we will support you. That would be a very strong political sign. But of course, that needs a lot of courage and is a very risky thing to do. But still, I would say on a political level, there are many things that could have been done and still we could be doing.
Just a word, the sensibility in the Western countries is also not that great that it should be. Well, it's not only the government. At the moment, we see all those demonstrations all over Europe for Gaza or against Gaza or what the hell, and very strong demonstrations. And where are the demonstrations against Putin? Where are the demonstrations against this war? Where are the demonstrations, the sensibility for prisoners, for dissidents? And this, I'm wondering, why does that happen? Also, the sensibility is much smaller than, for example, for Gaza. It's as if we are now used to the war and used to the situation in Russia, and I don't know why.
Well, this is actually the goal, isn't it? It's the goal. It's the goal of every repression, that people are getting so used to it that they do not even mention it, and it's not worth talking about it, right? That's absolutely the political will behind it. So you get people so used to it that they won't even bother anymore because, another political prisoner, someone else died in prison, someone is just, vanished somewhere and nobody actually knows where this person is. This is actually the will of, I would say, authoritarian regimes all over the world, no matter where. And I would also say, if people protest for human rights, I wouldn't say, why are they protesting for them and not for the others? If people are protesting for someone who is suffering due to human rights violations, that's a good thing, in general. So I wouldn't say, why are they not protesting for the others? At least they're trying to raise awareness for someone.
We had some protests, some bigger protests in Russia before 2020, and I'd like to quote something from your book, Lucia, the book Life from Ukraine, in German, Life aus der Ukraine. I can highly recommend to read to everyone who is interested in that times. You describe also several arrests during that time. Your reporting trip to Russia around 2020. And one of the scenes took place in August 2019 when you had an interview with Misha Gabovich, if I'm right. And I'll quote what you write in your book. A man wearing a balaclava, a helmet, and a bulletproof vest opens the barred door and threatens me, saying, "Keep quiet now." From inside the police van, I tried to reach my newsroom in Zurich. The signal is too weak for more than a brief message about my temporary detention. Whenever the opposition announces demonstrations, the authorities deliberately throttle the internet. And it's just one of the few moments, and there are also pictures here showing you being behind bars, almost. And my question to you, I mean, raising media public interest is definitely one of the way to also to get Swiss people and also Russian people in exile to protest against Putin. But this is difficult, isn't it? I mean, what you have done is very special. For sure, you've been followed by FSB. Maybe you were even afraid of your life.
I would say maybe I'm naive, but I would say I was never afraid of my life myself. So people, my family was afraid for me that something very bad could happen. But I'm very privileged being born in Switzerland. So I have no experience myself of an authoritarian regime. Neither do my parents, neither do my grandparents. This is absolutely different for all people living in any country of the former Soviet Union. So people in Russia, in Belarus, in Ukraine, all of them have some memory in their family of repression, right? At least they have heard of it. Maybe they have not suffered themselves, but they've heard of it. I am untouched by this, right? So this is a huge privilege. In my family, my grandfather, he could say politically whatever he wanted. He was not faced with gulag. This is not the case for people, from Ukraine, Russia, or Belarus. So this is absolutely different. And this makes me also, in a way, kind of immune to these kind of threats, because I'm not actually expecting. I did never expect that they would. Well, at a certain point, I shut up when I'm getting screamed at. Then I shut up and not demanding for, like the commander of the police to come and see and clear the situation. But otherwise, I'm not threatened that they actually would torture me. I never thought, well, maybe in Belarus, there was a certain moment when I thought, okay, this is a bad situation because I'm at a police station where I know people got tortured very badly. But as I'm a foreigner with my Swiss passport, this is kind of a protection. And I think like physical violence is a barrier for me. So as long as I know that I won't get physically hurt, I can allow myself to be much, not braver, but I can be much more pushy and report on stuff which is absolutely, unthinkable for local people. I don't think actually that the FSB followed me. I assume that the KGB in Belarus followed me because it's the KGB still there in Belarus, and they're kind of, it's really closer to the Stasi than the FSB is. So from their organization, I would say, yeah, they followed me most probably. For the FSB, I'm considering myself to be far not enough important at all. I mean, I'm a Swiss journalist. Switzerland is such a small country. Why should they care about me? I'm not reaching an international audience. That's something totally different. So no, I assume I was never followed. I was never, of such a high interest within Russia. I would say that actually was always a reason why I tried to do as much as I can. I was so sorry when I was not able to cover. I remember actually when you were in the south. I think the trial against you was in Rostov. Am I correct? Yeah, wasn't it? But it was in the Krasnodar. But it was in the south of right. Yeah, south in the southern part of Russia. So I was based in Moscow. But whenever there was a political case ongoing, and I followed Andrei Pivovar's case as well, I tried to cover it. Right, travel there, cover it, make a report about it. And of course, it's difficult in many cases because, of course, they did not, put you on trial in Moscow because then the attention for Andrei Pivovarov would have been much higher. This is actually why they, organize trials somewhere. And somewhere in Russia means always a few 100 kilometers traveling. So that's always, a hurdle already there. But still, I try to do what I can. And of course, it was never enough. There are so many cases I would love to have covered, especially, for example, minorities. We have not talked so far because like political repression never starts in the center of society. It always starts at the fringes. So I remember in 2019, you mentioned the scene in the book. In 2019, the majority of political prisoners in Russia were Crimean Tatars. The Russian authorities who annexed Crimea, right, in 2014, they just claimed to be, they just told that, oh, they're Crimean Tatars and they're just member of this illegal terror organization. Absolutely, unfounded claims. They put people in prison just due to the fact that they were Crimean Tatars. And that got that got nearly no attention at all. And it's always the case that repression starts at the fringes. And it reminds me always of this saying of this pastor from Germany, a pastor who sat actually in a concentration camp. And after the war, he wrote, when they came from for the communists, I did not protest because I wasn't a communist, and so on and so on. And then I came from for the socialists, but I did not protest because I wasn't a socialist. And when they came for me, there was no one left to protest. So I would say it's always difficult to report, to answer your question, Gulnaz, because it starts with people who are on the fringes of society. It starts with, ethnic minorities, religious minorities. There's so many religious minorities hugely suppressed in Russia. Jehovah Witnesses, I'm not sure whether you know that, Jehovah Witnesses, members of this religion are hugely repressed in Russia and are sitting in prisons by hundreds because of their religion. And that's a way of political repression, of course, as well. But for those people, nobody protests because they're kind of, at the very edge of society. And as long as a society is, and people are, not caring about other people within a society, the repression will only grow. I'm sorry for this long answer.
No, that's good. I mean, that is a principle of terror state. In theory, anyone can be targeted. And to speak out to support political prisoners or not to do so in order to protect yourself becomes definitely a moral choice for everyone, also for everyone from the audience. And in an interview which was published last week in the Insider, Andrea, I would like to ask you about how you see that, because the former FSB officer spoke in detail about dangers faced by opposition supporters and explicitly warned against writing letters to political prisoners saying that, they will gather all your data, so don't go there, don't support the political prisoners. I believe no one more can relate this better than you. What is your opinion on that, being afraid or to do?
I'm sure that this topic it's maybe his fantasy or something like this. So it's not a really serious risk, and of course it's absolutely not risky if you live not inside Russia. I am sure that they of course have a list of the people who wrote you letters. Absolutely, because you wrote all letters checked by censorship, and it's okay. It's the rule of any prison, I think, in any countries. But I think it's a good practice to support people, because there is a free topics why it helps. First of all, of course, it helps you to support the person, because he's sitting in the cell or in the cell with a lot of people, and he have a paper from you, and like support for him. But two more topics. First of all, it's attention, because in prison, easy way to press the person who have no lawyer, no friends, no neighbors. In this case, they can do anything with this person. Nobody knows about you, and the administration understand. He have a lot of letters. If we do something with him, he can maybe write in another world, and the people outside understand. What? You don't need problem. Okay, let's don't touch him. And the other idea I just did describe you this situation is very funny, because could you imagine the person who work in prison? Usually it's a colonial prison, usually stay outside of the big city. For example, I was in the city Primorsk-Akhtarsk. I'm sure that nobody knows where is it, maybe between, except Claire. And yes, or for example, Sekizha. It's a small city with one factory, approximately 15,000 people. And for the person who work here, several times in his life, he can go to Moscow. It's like a great vacation. He will speak a lot about this vacation. he don't have a foreign passport. In Russia, you have to have two passports: first inside Russia and first to go outside. He never been, for example, in Berlin, of course, in Zurich, and it's like another world. New York, it's another planet for him. And now he guard some person who sit in the prison, and he have letters from Zurich. From Zurich, he maybe understand in the school when they have a lesson on geography that this town, this happens, but like a miracle. And it's not the letter, but for example, give me money or vote me, for example, something. It's a letter, for example, about weather, about culture, about political situation. It's like change mind of the guarders. They understand that you are not a crime, that you are really fight maybe for your ideas. Maybe he don't support his ideas, but it helps to people who are soldiers, who are guarders, to understand that this person is okay and maybe cooler than he. It's like part of the guard for the people. So if you have a time, please wrote to people. It's great. And if you wrote that you are from Zurich, it's like a miracle for all the people who stay in this prison.
May I add something and ask you something first? The places you were those former gulags. Was there a prison during Soviet time where political prisoners were also held captive? Do you know that?
I think that, of course, the Soviet Union, it was much more harder.
Yeah.
I absolutely understand. And for example, my last column was established about 40 years ago. And I understand that not so much things changed there.
Okay.
Because I sit in the building which was built in 1978, as I remember. And the most modern thing which happens in this column, not good things. It's a video camera, and it's not for security. It's for control you, because they, for example, if you have a people, they can sleep, they don't watch for you. Video camera always control you, and for me it was like a not torture you, but it's a problem because they always can see what happens. For me it was a problem, but it's absolutely the same old. You told about Solzhenitsyn and Gulag. It was very point, yes, when he described how the doors open. It's very old metal doors with come on. Yes,
The locks.
these locals who are never broken. It's what the 5 or 10 years. I think the same, because it's very old lockers, and it's very very loud usually. And it's the same. I think that the people, for example, in 19th, in 18th, until this column was established, and I was in column with before me there was a very famous, two famous political prisoners. First of all, is Khodorkovsky, who spent about 6 years there. And Eldar Dadin, I think you know this person, is a political prisoner who when the war started, go to Ukraine and enter to the Ukrainian army.
Why I ask you this? Because I think it's one of the reasons why this repression is actually possible in today's Russia, because there wasn't no one ever was held responsible for the repression within the Soviet Union. And the whole system today is built on like the bones of the former Gulag system, so-called. I remember traveling to northern Russia, doing a report about a woman actually who was a child of the Gulag, so-called child of the Gulag. So her father was repressed in the Soviet Union and was sent to a Gulag, and she was born in the Gulag. And she's still, those people were not allowed to go back to their cities where they were taken when they were arrested. And she's still living like far up north in Russia and not allowed, to go back to the city. Actually, her father got arrested so many decades ago. And when we were driving to this very far out place, in the nowhere, actually, we were driving on a street which is called the Street of Bones. And it's called the Street of Bones because, well, that's not the official name, but that's how people call it there, living there. Because like so many prisoners during the Gulag system died while they were building the road. And there is no sign at all. There is not even a little sign on this road died presumably so many and so many prisoners during the Soviet Union while building this road. And that's, I think, it's one of the main causes why there is this repression actually possible in the 21st century, because there was like never ever, there were never courts, there were never publicly were never ever any people sentenced to anything, right? Due to the fact that they actually killed people by thousands, by 10,000, by 100,000. No one ever was held accountable. And this way, it stays until today. So people who are now working in prison, in Russian prison, are in many cases, not in all cases, of course, but in many cases, the children or grandchildren of former, prison guards who were already working in the Soviet system. So this goes by generation to another generation to another generation. And I think that's one of the main reasons, actually, we have political prisoners. And as long as this does not change, and people in Russia are not, getting more self-critical about their own history, I see very dark. I would hope to be as optimistic as Andrei Pivovarov. I would really hope to be more optimistic, but I see a little bit dark. Of course, it's very easy for a person from Switzerland to be so highly critical, right? We as Swiss people could be much more critical of our own history as well. I'm absolutely not saying that we shouldn't be critical, but I see, unfortunately, a little bit of dark concerning the future of Russia, unfortunately.
This is absolutely important point. I would even say more that in every Russian family now there are fathers, grandfathers, grandfathers who has been political prisoners or other prisoners during Soviet times. But what the regime is doing now, they raise monument to Stalin, so it's actually got completely forgotten and was not thought at the end of the 90s. People just wanted to close this door behind the Soviet Union and start building new Russia, what unfortunately didn't succeed. We have talked about raising sympathy, about raising understanding, covering these topics in media, but what is of course very important, in addition to writing letters and to support emotionally, is to do something which will change the situation completely. And as we're having here now people with this special view from media, from politics, also as political activists, is it anything what can be done now? Question to you, Marianne Binner-Keller. You met many representatives of Russian oppositions. I will say oppositions because unfortunately they are not that together. As politician, you know the different ways one can engage. And from what we've seen, from your experience, what can Russian oppositions abroad do more? What they are doing maybe not well or not enough?
We should support them, that they open their mouths, that they are really witnesses of this horror which happens, and they have to open their mouths. But us, we have to have more sensibility for history. I think this is the big problem, the huge problem in the West at the moment, that we are too indifferent to everything what happens. We start to forget history, and this is a very important thing to install at school, this knowledge again. Me, as I said, I'm kind of a child of Cold War. This history is deep. What happened is deep in my heart and as my knowledge, but it starts to fade away. And I think, and I'm very afraid about our Western democracies. They're very sensible plants. What I say, sensible Pflanzen. Our Western democracies start to fade away because we are too indifferent. And this knowledge of history, this is something that politicians should preach, and that the whole society should really be much stronger. I think this is a very important thing, and therefore we need all those witnesses who know about Russia, and especially if they're here, that we encourage them to talk about what happens, that people are more aware that, because it has to do with us. War in Ukraine has to do with us. It's a threat, it's a danger for Western democracies, and this we have to do, and this is very important for us politicians.
Lucia, you are a very...
Can I add one little sentence? we all know 1984 by George Orwell. He wrote this roman after under the impression of the Second World War. But what happens in 1984 is brainwashing at its best. It's what Putin does. So that Lavrov even starts to say the wall wasn't built by the Russians, or it wasn't built by the Soviet Union. It was built by Western people, Western countries. And if you for 10, for 15, for even more years start to kill the brains of people, then they start to believe the dictator. That was the same with Hitler. That was the reason that the Second World War started, because people didn't even know what they really should think. And we in Western countries who know exactly, who have possibility of free speech, we have to open our mouths and encourage everyone to do so.
So the one who does it for a long time now is, of course, you, Andre, and also Lucia. Your voice is very well heard. In your opinion, what can Russian opposition do more? Do you have any recommendations, suggestions? Because I mean, your position, your perspective is very important. You know both systems. You have ties to Switzerland. What would you say?
I'm a Swiss person, so I'm not in a position, to give any recommendations to people from Russia or from any other country, right? I'm not in the position to do so. I would say what Swiss people can do. So if you're wondering, or any person living outside of Russia, what you can do, you can donate, for example. You can donate to organizations like Memorial over the Info. They're trying to organize lawyers for political prisoners in Russia, or just like people who got arrested due to, not any reason at all, just because they're Ukrainian and walking down the street in a city occupied by Russian forces in Ukraine, right? So you can donate to these organizations. They try to do their best for these people. You can try and donate also for the ICRC, which is under huge, there is a huge critique also within Ukraine towards ICRC, which I understand partially, but partially it's the only organization who has actually access to prisoners, like POVs, for example. And when you donate to these organizations, you can help, because like international support and international humanitarian organizations are under huge political pressure right now. So if you're wondering what you can do yourself, that would be one thing every person can do.
First of all, I still believe in European democracy, and I'm sure that at the long distance, democracy will win, because dictatorship is only for the short or medium period. And I'm sure that the war will stop and the regime changes only in free part of the work. First of all, of course, it's the brave Ukrainians who every day fighting and defense from the aggression. The second is the European unity, and of course, you have a lot of problems, but in the full of common, I saw that the European community and the Switzerland same, it's a part of the big power, and in the long distance, I'm sure that it's more powerful than Putin, Lukashenko, and other person who try to look like a brave guy, but inside of them they have no power as much as they want to show. And the third part is our part. It's the working with Russian society. It's of course as a part of Russian position. We are really weak. We are absolutely understand it, because I told you that I am a politician for 15 years old, but Putin captures Russia for 25 years, and this is the 4th years of the war, and we didn't do some good news, for example, not the winner, something like a good. But in my point of view, we have a points of problem, and we can speak with Russians inside country. We can speak with the society inside, and it's our part of the work. Maybe we are not really effective, but we have our part. For example, Russian independent media have approximately day auditory. It's 20 million. people. Every day they take information from our media. It's important. We have some program who work with the political prisoners and prisoners. We have lawyers inside. It's important. Of course, we can create any meetings, any events. It happens by themselves, but it happens. I think everyone can see these videos on internet. But I don't want to speak from all the position. I'd like to think by myself. I think that I have to work with another part of society. It's easy way to speak with a person who understands the democracy is good and the European ideas it's great and it's good way for Russians. We have to speak with a person who hates us. First of all, soldiers. Maybe this person is not comfortable for you, for Europeans, for Ukrainians, of course, but it's a big problem for Putin. We have approximately more than 1 million persons who have a war experience. They was in army. It wasn't good experience for them, absolutely. People who are, for example, a conservative or nationalist or something else, because it's big part of the society who, of course, hates me. I'm foreign agents. I am a person who are not comfortable for them, but they are really aggressive. They are ready to fight for the rights, and they have a lot of problems. And the propaganda told him, Ukrainians, it's your problem. European is your problem. Foreign agents is problems. But the main problem for them, the people who send him on his war, it's Kremlin, it's Putin. Putin told him, you will be a leaders, you will be a deputies, you will be a person who will have a great salary, a lot of money, all your families will be a lot of money. But it not happens. In this case, we have to work with him because it's a big problem for Kremlin when this person go away from front to Moscow, to his city. It's a good chance to start change. Of course, it will be not a democratic change. It's not the person who will fight for freedom. It's the person who will fight with regime. In my point of view, it's a chance to stop the war. It's a chance to not crush the Kremlin regime. Of course, it's not comfortable. It's a person who are not Democrats. But in my point of view, we have to speak with them. Of course, we don't speak that you are true, you are right. No, I don't support this war. I hate Putin. But it's not a holy war. You were sent to the war by Putin. It's in this case, your friend was killed. You, for example, forgot lose your legs. In case of Kremlin, start this war. It's not a war for the Russians. It's a war for the money, for ears, for the Putin. I think we have to speak with them.
I think that understanding that that repression against political prisoners goes hand in hand with the war is a crucial one. That is actually that sticks together, and it's a same process. And I would say that everyone who is in this room also agrees on that, how important it is to talk and to support political prisoners. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But I would say also that we are maybe not the majority. Also, saying about the society here, it's not a pessimism, but I think that's very important to this fact. It's important. We should think about it. I'm speaking about those inside Russia who are paralyzed by repression, but I'm also speaking about people here in Switzerland, in Europe, Russians in exile, ethnic Russians, locals alike, and some oppose the regime, others seem to be distanced from politics, and there are some who are also in line with Kremlin. And I think that, Andrei, what you said, that we have to come out of the comfort zone and start to talk with different people, also people who are not in our bubble and obviously not support our views, is a very important process, because we face propaganda, disinformation, and this is not only in Russia and in Ukraine, but also, of course, in Europe. And just one final thought, I would like to thank you all for your insight, also for raising very important topic of political prisoners in Russia, then military prisoners from Ukraine in Russia as well, and also of understanding of how important it is to understand the historical roots of this, and that action is needed. Now we close this panel discussion here, but we actually at the same time open up discussion with you. Would like to hear also your voices and your questions. You have not necessarily to introduce yourself if you don't want to, but maybe you address your question toward one of the speakers. That would be easier for us.
Hi, I'm born in East Germany and I escaped in '89 via the Green Border. So my question to Andre, do you see any chance that there is a soft revolution in Russia like in East Germany? You reported about 1 million people who were in war, who suffered from war. If they would stand up and more other people to wash away this government, to wash away Putin, as the East Germans did in a soft revolution in '89. Is there any chance for this?
Maybe it's a sad answer. Maybe I have a lot of mistakes, so maybe it's not reality, but it's my point of view. It's two chances. First of all, it's something happens in the top. For example, I hope that Putin will be died or killed something, or something happens in the top of the Kremlin, and the next person would like to create new relationships with Western. In this case, it start to be like at the age of 18th in Soviet Union. It start to be light version, for example, of changes. It's first of all, and the second, it's a problem that in Germany I'm not special in history, but in my point of view, that in Germany your authorities we wasn't ready to start to fight, to kill the person. I absolutely understand that now Kremlin ready to shoot the people. It's so in this case I don't believe in soft variant, but so we have a lot of people who are ready to shoot. And my point of view, there is two variants: or it will be something on the top, or it will be really conflict with that.
But may I ask a question? This, exactly this. It started, the revolution on the streets. It started 3 or 4 years ago with Navalny. Or that there was a movement, wasn't it? Or was it? And then it was sort of, now it's very quiet, or we don't hear anything anymore.
Well, Navalny started much more before. It was in like 2006 or 7 he started, right? Being politically active. It was just like, I'm sorry, you can answer
I think
that
we
better.
have only one chance for the soft revolution. It was in 11 and 12. In this period, this winter, we really have a chance to create the changes. But after that, I think regime, and they saw the Ukrainian scenario, they saw Belarus scenario, and they will not speak with demonstration. They will not create some group of discussion. No, they will pressure, and it's not the people who'd like, for example, we give you power, we are not leaders. No, they are really crime persons. They are army военный преступник будет.
Didn't he make this?
War criminal. In this case, it's not a chance to please. I will be ex-president. No, go to Gaga.
And Navalny made this film about Putin, or his huge castle, and humor somehow is also a weapon.
People knew about this castle since 2012. I'm really so it's like it was
Yeah,
known.
but
I
the
remember
film-
the reports
the
in
film was in
2012. It was not. To answer your question, just one briefly. I mean, you're from Eastern Germany. I cannot, and I was born after the end of the Cold War, so I'm not in position, to judge the situation back then. But I assume you had like a perspective, right? You had a perspective to go to the West, to be unified, to live in a united Germany. No, in Eastern Germany, people. No? Okay.
Because they were fed up with the socialist government. So there was a pressure from there. 100,000 went on the street. And Andre is probably right that the government was not prepared to shoot the people. Yeah? But anyway, so there was at that time in '89 was no perspective that Germany will be united. Not at all, not at all. Even when I escaped in August '89, there was no perspective. So I went away via Hungary, via the Hungarian border to West Germany, and I was in a lager, yeah, for several weeks to get a new identity. And I thought I will never meet my parents again in East Germany. It was only possible by the pressure and by Andrei Gorbachev, who released East Germany, and that's why the wall came down. If Gorbachev wouldn't agree that the wall goes down, then it would not went down. I think so.
I
But
think-
anyway, this is history and has nothing to do with Ukraine. My question was just if the pressure rises in Russia, could there be a situation, we don't know, that the people also go in the street? Millions. You have many people in Russia go in the street in Moscow, in Leningrad, and say, okay, we want to stop this government. We want to stop
I
Putin.
really
Because Putin, maybe he will die in a few years. But also Erich Honecker, no one expected him to die.
I absolutely understand. It was the miracle. It was my dream. If it happens and people came to streets, and when we work inside Russia, of course we have connections, we have friends, we have activists there. But for me, it's a much great fear that, for example, I have a friend. I have a similar experience last autumn. I have a phone call with a friend. We have a long conversation. We speak about anything, about politics, not only. And at the morning I wake up, my wife told me this person have
A search at home.
search, and I understand it's not. We have no connection because it happens after the several days. You need some documents to do this, but it's big fear for me. Oh, maybe have any connections for me? It's like fear because I live in Berlin. I have no problem because every morning nobody comes, but for them it's a problem. I really like that it happens. I really like that a lot of people came to streets, and I know that a lot of Russians disagree with what happens. Of course, they can show that, yeah, we support Putin, we support the war. You ask him, do you like United Russia? Yes, we like, but of course, they don't want to be, don't really support this. It's a fear. It's a propaganda. A fear. Good work together, but I'm not sure about soft power. Absolutely. I said, of course.
Good evening, sorry. I wanted to answer in 3 points. First point, you maybe never heard my name, but just as you said, we have 3 generations which were oppressed by the Soviet regime. So my grandfather, his name was Ivan Ilyukhin, he was arrested and he was executed in 1937. My grandmother was afraid that they will come for her, so she tried to escape from Russia. She was caught and she spent like more than 15 years in Gulag. And my father was rescued by his aunt. So he grew up in a family with his aunt since 3 years old. So he was rescued. Otherwise, he would die in this prison with his mother. That's the example of the history, generational history. People are afraid because they lived under repressions for 100 years or so. The next, Putin didn't come from nowhere. He was a KGB agent and he wanted to be KGB. He tells us in every meeting that he wanted to be an agent from 17 or 15 years old. And he grew in a big mafia. So the second point is, maybe it's about political wisdom of people. Maybe it's about motivation. But first point is economical reasons. People became poor. They have no more means to protest, to organize any political power, because all the power of Putin, it's not just washing the brain. It's also economic power. He killed all the oligarchs. He took their money. So he's not just he wanted to be Berezovsky #2. And he became Berezovsky #1. So he's not speaking only about brainwashing, though his now girlfriend Kabaeva, she said, and we can watch it on YouTube, there are many interviews with her. She said that information is the best weapon now, so we should invest in misinformation, up to her. It's her words. You can find it. Now speaking about, again, the name Ilyukhin, he was my grandfather, but there was another Ilyukhin, Viktor Ilyukhin, he was a general procureur. And he spoke with the army
General attorney.
And he said to many people, he's not my relative, but just by chance, you can watch him on YouTube. He said to many people, Putin is killing from behind, so don't let him make you suicide. Don't make him, people, officers, they committed suicides because they were so poor, they couldn't live, they couldn't find any job. The situation, economic situation was so poor that people couldn't organize in some protests. They were dying by themselves. And when he said so in the conference, you can find this conference on YouTube, the next day he had a heart attack at his home. So people are dying from now, falling from the windows. But the point about the repressions and the meetings, coming to the third point. In 2021, I happened to be in Voronezh, and there happened to be a manifestation to support Navalny in April 21. And there was a call to come to the center place of Voronezh and to manifestate. And I wanted to come there. I happened to cross this place by car, by bus, and I saw all the streets around this place, all the nearby streets. There were so many police and all the military and all the buses and what not. I understand that Voronezh is not far from the Belgorod, from Ukraine, so we understand that there are some military horizons. But frankly, they missed only planes and tanks. All the rest, there was there. All the places, all the streets were blocked. So people who would like to manifest, they couldn't. And the central place, Lenin Place, Площадь Ленина, they started the works there. So people couldn't even approach this place because they started changing the asphalt. So even somebody who would like to manifest like me, I called my friends, I said, I would like to manifest. They said, don't do it, you will be our next grandfather. So you understand the soft revolution now? It's just example from my family. You can understand from this. You can't make people, peaceful people without arms, manifest against arms. And the arms you buy with petrol, and petrol is Putin. That's why we should turn the situation other way around. We should support ecology, other political parties, whatever political parties, but to make him economically poor. That's the point now. My opinion. Huh?
Thank you. We have a question, I think, in the front. We also have a question online. I want to make sure that we get to that as well. I'll just read it out. Yeah, perfect. And the question online for all three of you, in fact, well, see which one of you actually has the answer, is do you expect another prisoner exchange in the near future or any kind of future? And if yes, who would be in it from both sides?
Well, to be very honest, the question was an exchange of prisoner from Russia, right? The only way that people get freed from the prison directly is if there are foreigners that are, Russians, for example, in hands of any other state like the United States, Germany, whoever, and so that an exchange can happen, right? So if there are people in prison in the West, for example, and there is an interest in them by the Russian government, then there might be an exchange. But it's not this, it's an absolutely different situation with Belarus, but because for Alexander Lukashenko, it's like a political tool to give the impression of, oh, I'm now closer to the West. I'm becoming a Democrat in any way, which he's not and never going to be, and never has been at all. But so for Russian prisoners within Russia, I see very dark concerning this, like an exchange. I don't see one coming. If I'm mistaken, which could always be, then that would be good news, right, for prisoners who get freed.
We have it's strange to discuss this, but we have a rumor last 2 weeks that new exchange can happen, and these rumors told about 20 persons from each side, but these rumors happens before the new sanction happens and before the Budapest was cancelled. I hope so. I hope this happen. This can be, because for Putin, political prisoners is like items like a tovar, I don't know the English. Items, yes, and it's not about the people. If he can change for something, for example, for good relationships with Trump, not a problem. But if it's not a present, it's like some part of the deal. So I hope it happens. About list, it's difficult questions because I still don't know all the information about my exchange, because it's not. You can see a lot of movies, a lot of clips in internet. We done it. We create lists. It sometimes it happens, but sometimes it means something. But usually it's like a public campaign and not more. It's a big discussion between not comfortable person. Some people with how it's called, maybe some FISB groups and CIA groups and some secret service from Europe. First of all, in this list, usually the person who have citizenships of the countries, because it's reality that any country, any president like to help his citizens. And in our list, first of all, was Americans, then Germans, and then Russian political prisoners. It's not a set; it's a reality. And I hope it happens. And I can guess that, for example, some part of this group will be foreign citizens, and last, maybe not, I don't know how many, will be famous political prisoners. It's very important to speak about Boris Kagarlitsky and others, because if the person in news, it's easy way to enter this list. It's a politics. It's sad, but it's politics. And for other side, I can guess that there will be some criminal person who steal money, who broke the sanction, who have some bad deals with crypto, because Putin usually take back his thieves, killers, and other bad person. It's sad, but he done it last time.
Sorry, I can't answer these questions because I don't know. I have to be open.
Let's assume Putin will disappear tomorrow. Are there some prospective plans, activities for the day of?
Disappear to where? There is no place for him. This is why he will stay until he dies. There's no.
Perhaps he dies.
That's the only way,
Or
because
he will be
yeah.
killed by activists.
Yeah, so he's dead, right? So that's the only way he will get out of office. He's in the situation absolutely.
He is
Sorry.
demand.
Well, that's not a. I would say. Well, yeah. The only reason he could not be in power anymore is the moment he's dead, either by natural death or not by natural death. But there is no place he can flee. You might remember Bashar al-Assad from Syria. Yeah. But the question would be, what then happens?
First of all, I think it's a short period of chance. We have to. It's maybe in this case, one of the person told about soft power. If Putin will be killed or something happened with this, it's a short period we have when we have no leader, because Russia is really super, not president, but dictatorship organization, because all serious decision is from the Kremlin. In this case, there is some war between his friends, some war between the Kremlin top. In this case, you can really start some soft changes, or maybe not soft changes. I hope we will have a chance to come back in this case. I know that some part of the Russian opposition don't want to come back. I want to come back. I know that some group of my friends like to come back. It's a chance for us to start political activity inside Russia. It's a chance to European countries to start discussions with the new Russian leaders, because in this case, they are really interested to cancel the sanctions, some part of the sanctions. in this case, Europe and America can pressure to Kremlin. Okay, you'd like to cancel, okay, let's speak about Ukraine. Let's speak um, about money. Let's speak about political prisoners. Let's speak about the political reforms. In this case, it's not a Russia will not be a democracy as, for example, your great country and other countries, but it's chance to be lighter. As, for example, as with Gorbachev, because Gorbachev was a really reformator, but it's not his own his way that he decided to go. It was on the pressure of the European politics, in my point of view. And in this case, it's chance to change the Russian way, Putin's way. I hope it's a short period of or some. For me, I'd like to come back in a short period. In this case, we have some plan of reform. We have to, but it means that you have to be very, very fast because it's maybe several weeks.
It's always a question. It's a very good question. What does a vacuum provoke? We see it now in Iraq with the chief of the Khamenei is mentally ill or has, like you said, is losing his brain. So there is some hope in Iran that could be a change. With Russia, I see a tendency also in Europe for autocrats, strongmen, autocrats. Obviously, we're again in a situation where we like those people. And around Putin, there are a lot of also autocratically thinking people, and it could be that they just take over the power because it's very sexy, obviously, having power. But it's a very important question. What happens if he dies? Is it possible that America makes such a pressure to Russia that it really could be a change? Could be possible. That's my big hope.
The only way I think first needs to be a trial. A trial against those people who have committed war crimes in Ukraine. When this trial will happen and people will be held accountable, then one can talk about any political change. But before that, there is no chance. I won't assume that the United States will help because the United States are currently not making impression. They're interested in a liberal world order as we have known it so far in the last 80 years. So I think, at least in the West, we have known it since the last 80 years. So I wouldn't assume that they would help with that. The only way that there would be a democratic, any future at all, if there is any perspective for a European integration for Russia, but for this, there first needs to be a trial against the war criminals and those people responsible for, thousands of Ukrainians who got killed during the war. And then we can talk about something. But I think the probability is much higher that there is going to be a short window after Putin's death. One day he will die, everyone dies. So there's also going to be the day Putin dies. And when he's dead, there is a window of opportunity, a short one. And if there are no European, forces who are actually trying to establish something, then nothing good will happen, and there will just be another crony, fighting about resources within Russia, and then there will be another autocracy. I assume this very dark perspective to be rather possible. If I'm proven wrong, good news, then the future is not so very dark.
A little other question: is he still alive? It's more. My question is: I often thought that he is doubled, and then he is.
I would rather say that maybe that also does make the difference, but I very well understand the nature of your question because Putin has personalized this power, his presidential power. But I do also agree with those who said that political pressure, economical pressure has to be put on Russia and even more to make those, either Putin or someone else, to understand this war. There is no win for Russia in this war. It has to come to an end. And then hopefully maybe this small window of opportunity will be used. But the question, what happens if Putin is just, we are losing just energy discussing this. So.
Question?
Yeah.
Yes. Give 1 second. We'll go there.
We were talking now about windows of opportunities that might open someday, yeah, when Putin dies or other circumstances. When you compare with the window of opportunity that was out there in the beginning of the 90s, but finally it was not successful at that time, what do you think should be different the next time? And especially, what would you expect from the other European countries of how they would behave, support, or what needs to be expected?
Question to all the speakers, or do you find someone special? Okay.
First of all,
I thought you were starting. What I said before, I think we have to be much more aware about our democracies. We have to fight for our democracies. We have to lose our independency about democracies. And if that happened, or that is this window of opportunity, again, like in the 90s, then we should stand up in the European countries and really fight for these opportunities. All the leaders in Europe, and what I always say, we have big discussions in Switzerland about being closer, going closer, or to perpetuate the bilaterals, the way working together in Europe. And exactly for this, Europe has to stand together. Also, Switzerland has to be ready to stand together with Europe. This Europe, I think this is a chance also for Europe to realize that we really have to fight together, stand together for our democracies.
About some reforms in Russia, we have a lot of programs planned. First of all, of course, it's a real federalization, and we have a lot of problems. And I think it's maybe we have a new event to discuss this. But you told what we like to ask for Europe. Of course, we understand. Then when it happens, when it's finished, I'm sure that it's finished, and we will live in another world. I'm sure that also Europe will help Ukrainians. It's okay. It's right, because it's people who are really under aggressions, and also Europe will help him to rebuild the country, to help him to create normal economy, normal life. But it's maybe important for Europe, for other countries, to understand that in Russia we will have the same problems that Putin have now. I told you about the soldiers, about 1 million soldiers who was in the war. And now it's problem of Putin. And in the next stage, it will be a problem of the new not democracy, but new authorities of Russians. And usually some TV propaganda and some media describe Russia as Germany under Hitler and something else. But in my point of view, it will be more looks like as a period after the First World War, when the German army came back to the country. It was a very bad financial situation, Weimar Republic. About a lot of people came back from the front, and then nobody expects them. No, they told him, "We don't send you this way," and it will be our problem, of course. And of course, the Europe will help Ukrainians. But if it happens, it can create the same situation that was in Germany one century ago. Because this person with weapons, with army experience, who are really aggressive, they expected something, some power, and we have no money, no economy to help him. I understand that it's all theirs. And they can renew new Putin or something much more harder than Putin now, some revanche or something else. It will be a big problem for new Russian authorities, but it will be dangerous, of course, for the Europe. So maybe it's not a discussion for now, but for the future, that we need maybe some program to I don't know in English to как-то интеграция этих людей.
For those with the trauma, with the war trauma, you mean?
Yes.
With the post-traumatic stress disorder.
Because 1 million people who have a shoulder stop, it's a very bad power, and you people from the pub who told with him, and you are heroes. It's enemies who I thought called English. It's либералов ставят нож в спину предателя.
The liberals.
the worst, they get knife in the back.
The same it was in Germany, and it's a problem of the future, but it can happen.
Are there any other questions? Yes, we have maybe 1 or 2 last questions.
Hello. Sorry, no, as a complete outsider, the thing which I always think of is Russia is just so big. It's 15 time zones or something like that. And if Putin leaves and there's no one to fill that gap, what's going to happen in this huge area? I don't have an answer for it, but
I think in political science there is like a theory that there is like a that every country that has so many many natural resources is actually drawn rather to conflict and war due to the fact that there is always a fight between certain groups, about these resources, right? So the probability, according to this theory from political science, would be that there would be any conflict between different groups fighting about these resources. So this is a very high probability. So this is one reason why I assume that the future does not look really good.
because the last thing you want in Russia is civil war.
But you actually
West doesn't want that either.
I think from a European perspective, we are of high interest that we have like a Russian Federation, any following country that is in a much more stable and democratic orientation due to nuclear weapons, because we're in Europe. Actually, anybody living on this earth should have a high interest that the country is stable and that these nuclear weapons are within the borders of a stable country with a democratic, kind of function. Because otherwise, we have just a much more unsecure future, all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, it would be of our core interest.
And that's exactly why the West should also think about what's going to happen with Russia after Putin, because if they don't, then they have a problem.
I think there's two chances. First of all, if we can create real federalization, when the right of minorities, right of small regions can be normal represented on the top, Russia will continue, maybe not the same, but it's the same borders. But if we create the same situation when every decision created in Moscow, I think it's no longer for this country.
I think this question is also very much related to a war issue itself, because the tradition in Russia towards minorities and Ukrainian people are also be seen like some part of this bigger empire, and these questions definitely have to be solved by the future government, because I think that also in Russian opposition there are not one view on what Russia will look like in future. Are there other separate countries, several of them? Is it still a huge country empire? What about minorities? You told about all these military people coming back to Russia, and Putin obviously is afraid of them. But there are also so many social problems and also ethnical problems, which are not kind of covered by this pressure by war, but they will definitely come out once war is over.
I don't have a question directly, but I would like to add something to your question, because just today there's a fantastic article in NZZ, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, to Inside Kreml. And if you want to understand what perhaps could happen if Putin would not exist anymore, then you just read that article and then you won't have no future. I was so shocked when I wrote that article, and my hope that things could get better was just destroyed 10 minutes later, definitely. I mean, I was traveling to Russian for over 20 years, from south to north, from east to west, and I saw a lot of things. And my Russian teacher, a young lady, she's sitting completely frustrated in St. Petersburg, not having a possibility anymore to connect because Putin is closing WhatsApp. If somebody has got more than 1,000 followers, for example, in Facebook or whatever, in social media, then they get closed. So you were asking, why don't they connect to each other? Why don't they demonstrate? Why don't they go to the street and stand up for their rights? Very easy, because they can't connect. They have no possibility to get to other people. Because if you have got 1,000 followers, then you get closed. So how do you want to demonstrate if you are only so few people? This is not really funny. And yeah, I found it makes me not really happy in this sense. And read that article, then you know what will happen.
Most of I agree with you, but sometimes good news happens. For example, in St. Petersburg a week ago, there was a small group of girls and men who play on the streets on the Nevsky Prospect and others, and they play songs of the Foreign Agents. It's a popular artist who go away, and they were arrested. And a lot of people in different cities, as Moscow, as Kazan, start to support him in TikTok, popular in Russia, in Instagram, his blog, but his work. Young generations, people from 15 to 18, start to support him. And of course, they try to block everything. But we have a joke, I know how it in English. What water is... Вода дырочку найдет. Прошу прощения.
Water will find a hole.
And I hope this person are not political activists. Maybe they support this group. So they'd like to sing a song. It's okay. Of course, if you create an event, for example, against Putin, against war, a lot of police come here and it's fear. But in the same not so political idea, I hope that can change.
Hello. Hello. It is, sorry. I'm heard, yes? I have a question for Frau Lucia, Frau Mariana. International institutions like Brussels, Strasbourg, and United Nations, do they have wish, rights, and function to help prisoners in Russia?
Well, I would say within the United Nations, there's the veto of the Russian Federation in the Security Council. This makes the institution of the United Nations much more, make it more difficult, right? So this is why they're, right? So that's the situation in the United Nations. Within Strasbourg, I mean, everything that happened before the 16th of September 2022 is still a case that can be, there can be, if there was a human rights violation within Russia or committed by citizens of Russia, it can still be, held a trial in Strasbourg, but after the 16th of September 2022, when Russia officially was not a member of the European Council anymore, it was also not a member of the court in Strasbourg. So any human rights violation happening after 16th of September is unfortunately out of the competency of the court in Strasbourg. So this is a huge problem. There are now talks. I'm not sure whether you heard about this. There are now talks about setting up a new court for, a special court concerning the war crimes that were committed by Russian soldiers on territory of Ukraine and against Ukrainians. But it's not final yet what exactly that would look like. But this is, of course, something Ukrainians are pushing very much for, and which I think is also like for everyone who is interested in a Russia with a stable future should be interested, because if there is not going to be a court, there won't be any good future from my perspective, because then it's just a prolongation of violence and the use of force in the future time. So we'll see. Hopefully there will be a court.
I'm a member of the Council of Europe, and just to say that we quite often have Russian dissidents in Europe talking. There was Karamurza's wife 1.5 years ago, before he got free. That was for me an impressive moment where she was talking in front of the Council of Europe, and then next session he was there. But one couldn't believe that. But one couldn't believe that. But now there was Russia isn't part of the Council of Europe anymore, like Lucia Cirki said. But we had a new resolution in the last session that Russian refugees can be now again come back again as a group in the Council of Europe. It was a huge discussion. The Ukrainians were very, very critical because they said, yeah, there's some of them were supporting the war or they're not for Ukraine. We don't want them in the Council of Europe. It's because they could be against us. But in the end, this resolution was clear, and we form now possibilities. Karamursa was also there, and his wife, that they can come back as a special group in the Council of Europe. Not Russia, but the dissidents.
It's really important for us. Thanks a lot for this. It's great.
Thank you. If I'm right, we have no questions left. So we'd like to conclude now. Again, a huge thanks to all the speakers. Thank you for your time, for your insight. A huge thanks also to you, to your questions, also to our online audience. And as we are facing right behind you, if you turn your head, the portrait of hope, maybe we also try to portray to find a hope, because without hope, there is no resistance, but without hope, there is no fight against regime. Either you are in the prison or outside. So let's stick together, let's hope and support Future Russia, Russia Anti-War Committee, and also all the different initiatives, also those of Andrei Pivovarov, to fight with a regime which is actually causing also political prisons, as we get to know. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
I would like to say thank you to Gulnaz for guiding us through this discussion. Thank you for Marianne for coming. Thank you for Andre and for Lucia. That's a really great honor for us to have you here. Again, it's our first roundtable that we organized as an association. I would like to give you a little heart from the Freedom Zone Festival for you to take home for all of you. Thank you very much. And I would like to remind that this roundtable was a part of the festival Freedom Zone. We organized this festival because the 30th of October is the day of political prisoners in Russia, and we choose the whole month to organize events, and also to make a campaign and to collect money to support political prisoners. Lucia told about different organizations where you can give money, and from our side we collect money. This month we will transfer all the money to Freedom Zone. That's an organization that supports directly political prisoners, help them buy food, help pay the lawyers, etc., etc. So you can find all details on our website. There is also a box if you would like to put some money in it. And thanks a lot for coming and being part of this discussion.